And I'd like to speak about a different matter. Last night, I was privileged to be at a gathering of people who had assembled to commemorate the memory of Hacham Ovadia Yosef, alav shalom, the son of Yaakov Obadiah. Many things were said about him and what he represented. There was one thing that was very conspicuous for its silence, and it troubled me immensely. They spoke about how he was a champion for the Sephardim. Indeed, Sephardim at the time, indeed today also, but very much so at the time, needed a champion to build their self-esteem. He concentrated on building schools for Sephardim, mostly for the underprivileged. Again, it's not where it should be today, but it is better. We'll speak more about that. The third area was that of women's head covering, where women should cover their hair. And it was in this area that I heard a deafening silence. I would like to explain what I mean, but first let me give you a little background. After the state of Israel was formed, many Jews from Sephardi lands flocked to the land of Israel. They had Operation Magic Carpet, Operation Ezra and Nehemiah, and so on. And when they came there, they expected to find something very different. Of course, the people in charge were not interested in building a state on religion. And I heard stories of people coming from Babylon, then Iraq, where the families were separated. You go this way, you go that way. And they were taken to non-religious kibbutzim and so on, to kind of drum all the religion out of them. And there were other stories that I'm not going into now. One of the very great Hachamim who came from Baghdad, who was indeed the head of all the Hachamim in Baghdad, was Hacham Silman Hugi Abudi, alav shalom. He arrived in the land of Israel, and they said to him, "Can you write the Ashkenazi script, what many people mistakenly believe is the modern Israeli script? Indeed, it is the script that is used in Israel, but it is not a modern Israeli script at all. It is the traditional Ashkenazi script." He, being a true Sephardi, wrote the Rashi script, the Amrani script that Sephardi Hachamim always wrote, and hopefully many do still today. So he replied, could he write the Ashkenazi script? He said, no. The head of all the Hachamim of Babel was given a broom and told to sweep the streets. And this is what he did in his humility, until Hacham Yitzhak Nesim alav shalom, the chief rabbi of Israel, the Rishon LeZion. Indeed, he was the only chief rabbi for 12 years of his many years as chief rabbi, where there wasn't a Sephardi and Ashkenazi. There was just, he was the only chief rabbi. He found out about it, and he said to him, are you people crazy? Do you know who he is? And finally, Hacham Silman Hugi Abudi alav shalom became the Ab Beit Din, the head of the Jewish religious court in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. It was in this atmosphere that Hacham Obadia alav shalom tried to get Sephardim to lift their heads up and feel that they were also people. And whether the Sephardim today are following this or not, I don't know. There are some who are proud to be and some who have simply thrown their heritage away. In any case, this is one very major thing that he was working on. The other thing, as I said, was Jewish education. Now, one must not think that Jewish education in the land of Israel is good today for Sephardim just because Hacham Obadia did what he could. Indeed, I know of many cases where Sephardi families, in order to be able to get their children into good Jewish schools, Ashkenazi schools, had to change their name to something very Ashkenazi sounding, otherwise they would not have been admitted. It is very different there to the way it is in America. People should not feel that just because in America, Baruch Hashem, thank God we don't have that. You go to numerous Ashkenazi schools and you'll find very Sephardi sounding names there, the land of Israel is very, very different. So this is something that Hacham Obadiah did indeed work hard at. But as I say, we need to do a lot more work in that area. There is a problem in the land of Israel in the sense that over here we understand that we're Jews together, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, we can live together, work together, but each one can keep their own traditions and be proud of who they are. In the land of Israel, it is much harder. The haflaya there is much stronger than it is elsewhere. But let's get to the third point. And the third point is that of women's hair covering. Now, what I'm about to say, I'm saying for the Sephardim. Hacham Obadiah said it for everybody. But I am referring specifically to Sephardim. Ashkenazim, I think, will find the topic interesting because their Hachamim have two opinions. Those who will say and have said exactly the same things as I'm going to mention now, and those who take the opposite view. So each one will have to make their own decisions on that. But for the Sephardim, it's very, very clear. Yes, indeed, Hacham Obadiah, alav shalom, said that women have to cover their hair. By the way, it's not just married women, but he also mentioned the traditional Sephardi custom that girls, once they're over the age of 12, when they did religious items, such as they would go into synagogue, they would say a prayer, they would say a bracha, a blessing, would also put a scarf on their head or a head covering for that period of time. But that's not what I'm discussing now. I'm discussing married women. Yes, indeed, Hacham Obadiah did say that women have to cover their head, as does every Hacham and Rabbi, and has always been since the beginning. But what he stressed was, and he repeatedly stressed, and nobody at the gathering wanted to mention it, was that he said that wigs, peah nochrit, are forbidden. He was categorical about it, and he repeated it. You can go online and see his videos saying it. He wrote about it. He mentioned it. Wigs, he said, I'm saying for Sephardi women, Ashkenazim will work it out with their own rabbis. I'll let the Ashkenazi rabbis fight it out. But Sephardim, it's a clear-cut case. It was unheard of. And the things he says about not wearing a scarf or a hat, but rather wearing a wig, I can't repeat it, it's not my style. But he was very different. He was very definite, He was very definite about it. Now that wasn't mentioned. One of the things about Hacham Obadiah is that he said what he felt was right. And I saw people there last night who were clamoring for Hacham Obadiah. I am an adherent, they said, of Hacham Obadiah. But can you be an adherent of someone and not keep that which is very dear to him? Look, everybody knows I'm an adherent of the Ben Ish Hai. I am an adherent of Hacham Yosef Hayim, alav shalom. Does that mean I keep every single thing in accordance with what he says? No, I keep the vast majority of things. But I have a masoret, a tradition from my father, from his father, it goes back probably to Har Sinai, where certain things were done a little differently. But these are things that are not so major. It is not possible for me to stand here in front of you and say, I follow the Ben Ish Hai and I don't do that which the Ben Ish Hai clamors as being extremely important. That's an impossibility. If he says it's very important, then if I follow him, I have to do it. And there are people who say, I follow Hacham Obadiah. What do you mean? You follow his kuloth? Yes, he had many leniencies. Is that what you mean? What about the few times he came down firmly? He was more strict and said it must be. It is not possible to do it any other way. And you don't follow that? You brush it under the rug? Is that called following Hacham Obadiah? Hachamim have come, Hachamim have gone. We've had many great Hachamim come and go. And you know what? Each time we say, maybe now Mashiach is coming. And Mashiach hasn't come. Let us not fool ourselves. There are a few things required for Mashiach to come. One of them is Jewish education. keeping the Torah, doing hasadim, ze'im ze, being good to each other as Jews. And very importantly, Mashiach will only come when Perisuth has been removed from the world, when Siniuth is firmly rooted, when modesty is firmly in place. That's when Mashiach will come. Do we really care if Mashiach comes? If we do, then we must do something in all these areas. All these areas. We can't fool ourselves. And for those who were sitting there claiming to be adherents of one of the Gedolei Ador who passed away, is it possible for them to say that they follow him, yet don't keep that which he reiterated several times as being of extreme importance? I don't think so. And neither do you. It is my prayer that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in His infinite mercy, will open up our eyes and make us follow that which we know in our hearts to be right. But we fool ourselves. Yes, the pressure around us is very great. But since when has that mattered? Since when has that stopped us from doing the right thing? It mustn't stop us here. Just as I hope it will not stop you in Kashrut. It will not stop you in Shemirat Shabbat. It will not stop you in Taharat HaMishpaha. So too, in the matter of Siniuth, it must not stop you. How can the men who were sitting there last night, and I've heard, and I know some of them, that their wives want to do the right thing, want to wear a scarf, want to wear a hat, and their husbands stop them. Why? Their husbands want other men on the street to gaze at their wives. That's what their husbands want. Is this what a Jew is? And worse than on the street is when they go to weddings, where you have hundreds of other people there. A woman is supposed to look good. She's supposed to look well turned out. But she mustn't turn men's heads. Men must not gaze upon other married women. Think about it. Just as certain clothes are inappropriate because they would turn heads, head coverings that look like that which we are told we have to cover are also inappropriate.